Well, me and Brittany are up on top of Little Round Top on her last night here in Gettysburg for this year, and so it is sunset. Sun is setting behind us, but figured this would be a good location for her to kind of reflect on what the adventures were for this summer. So how did you like it, Brittany?
Well, I mean, I think it was a really great experience. I mean, it's appropriate that I'm here at Little Round Top because, being from Maine, it makes sense. Um, I guess, oh man, I can't even summarize, I think, how great this internship was. Not just from historical point of view, but I met some really great people, uh, both working with them and also being able to meet just visitors who had really interesting stories to share. And being a historian, even those accounts are very important, and particularly ones that have to do with the time period that you're actually talking about. I mean, I got to meet people who'd voted for Eisenhower. I got to meet people who worked for him. I got to meet veterans of all sorts of wars, and even just people who remember growing up in the 50s and the 60s, which is, you don't think about how important it is to hear stuff like that, because you as a historian, you'd like to hear about you'd like to resurrect somebody from the Civil War and get to talk to them, but you don't think about how important somebody from the 1950s perspective is too. Because you really think about it, I guess it's one thing that I've learned historically or educationally by working at the Eisenhower farm is that the 1950s really was a turning point in America's history, and whether you think it's a good one or a bad one, it's definitely another one of those turning points in that grand scheme timeline sort of thing. So being able to hear from somebody who was alive during that is immensely helpful, and it really is the best education I think one can receive straight from the horse's mouth, I guess. So I think if I had to summarize my internship, I'd have to say it was an excellent experience because of the people involved. I'm here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, but, I could have been in Arizona or, Mexico, and, just getting to meet the people would have been probably the best part of that experience. I mean, Gettysburg is pretty too.
Yep.
So there's that.
Talk a little bit about when you first got here, and talk about how the Civil War changed Gettysburg.
Well, before I came here, I was very focused on, Little Round Top, Chamberlain. That happened. Warren, who's behind me. Hi, Warren. He's actually the guy who actually first spotted the Confederates moving in on Little Round Top before the battle actually began, and really warned them that they were trying to flank the Union. So, in the end, Warren's the hero of, Little Round Top, but we like to believe it's Chamberlain, being from Maine. But I don't know. I think, being concerned with that initially, and then, the more time I've spent here, it's more than just the battlefield. It's more than just this person was here at this time and they fought against this brigade or this unit or this cavalry or whatever the case might be. It matters more than that. There is, the aftermath, of course. I learned a lot more about the people of Gettysburg's reaction to events here, and you never really think about how they reacted. You don't think about how they dealt with it. You don't think about things like that. And so being able to be here for 2.5 months, essentially, you're forced to think about that because you're actually living or being around the people their descendants are here now. So they remember, and it left a mark on their family, certainly. And so, it's one thing to think about, the Battle of Gettysburg was fought July 1st to July 4th, 1864. But you don't think about how there was, the people who were affected by that, whether that be Jenny Wade or the Shriver family or just anybody like that. You don't think about that so much initially. So I think that's the biggest difference between pre-internship Brittany and post-internship Brittany in terms of the Civil War.
So you just kind of answered your own question about before you came here and after. Do you feel like you've changed some of your historical views and embracing it a little bit differently than you were maybe before?
Well, I think the one thing that can be said is that, you always, in history classes, you would talk about how history is layered. Very much like an onion, I guess. You peel away each layer and there's another layer, and just keeps going and going and going. You talk about that in a history class, but I don't think you really believe it until you are put in that place. So it's very much a geographical shift in the way that I think about history, because you can say that Pearl Harbor happened in Hawaii. You can say that the beaches of Normandy were stormed on June 6, 1944. You can say all of that. But until you actually been to that place and actually experienced the area geographically and place-wise, you don't really have a complete encapsulated sense of the events that you're talking about. And so, very much like an onion, you have to peel back the layers, and you can get some of them by reading a history book or watching, as the case might be with Eisenhower, watching film reels or things of that nature, looking at the artifacts that people left behind. You get different perspectives, but in the end, it's very place-oriented. So, being in Gettysburg for 2.5 months, almost 3 months, you're forced to reconcile almost your preconceived notions about the place and your preconceived notions about the Confederates or the Union, which, my notions haven't changed. I feel the same about the Confederates that I did before I came here. I feel the same about the Union before I came here. But, yeah.
So I'm gonna bring up a subject.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
With all the talk of the rebel flag, did that change Gettysburg this year in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think I have enough, pre-knowledge to judge if it changed Gettysburg. But from what I've gathered, it really divided and somewhat united the town in many ways. It divided the tourists, I think, certainly, that come here. Some of them were like, oh, yes, you should have the Confederate flag up. Or, oh, no, that's wrong. It represents something hateful, and you shouldn't do that. But I think, I don't know, I think it also united the town in many ways. Because they all were reevaluating how they look at the flag. And whether you agree with it or not, I think that, the case stands that you should reevaluate these things every once in a while. Regardless of what side of the issue you fall on, I do believe that you should reevaluate things like this every so often. Perhaps not to the extreme that some people are doing. More verbally, you should speak more verbally to it, but you shouldn't necessarily do anything physically.
All right. So you had a great summer.
Oh, yes.
So,
very great summer.
My only thing to you, Brittany, is as you go into your career, you are the torchbearer for history. You are going to be teaching the next generation of citizens about this very place. So I'm glad you had a great summer. So now I'll let you ponder for a few minutes.